Hope you'll stay and join us for it. It's definitely one that you don't want to miss. Now, many of you have been to these forums before, and it will follow sort of a broadly similar format. We'll give you an overview of Transform Leatherhead for those of you who are attending or viewing for the first time. We'll talk you through the various projects comprised under the retail, riverside and urban quarter, and then we will move into the Q&A. So Transform Leatherhead. It's all about transformation. It's a massively complex piece of work which represents a total investment into Leatherhead Town Centre of £240 million. That doesn't represent Mill Valley's budget for the works, but that's the value of the total investment. And the anticipated timeline for delivery of that investment is 10 years. It has to be properly planned and managed, and we have strong governance arrangements in place, and we publish and maintain the programme plan on our website at transformleatherhead.com. Like any other developer, we have to do things in accordance with the law, rules and regulations, the various standards and policies that apply. This means we have to undertake the usual consultations, comply with our planning, conservation, environmental policies, the council's own financial standards, as well as take into account the physical reality on the ground and unexpected events. It is a long-term project, it is complicated, and all I can say is that it will constantly evolve and develop as the circumstances around Transform Leatherhead change. So what are we doing and why are we trying to do it? Well, the master plan came about because extensive consultation undertaken by the master planning team showed people wanted it. They supported the changes and the projects that are comprised in the master plan. And on the slide up there on the screen, we showcase the key projects that comprise Transform Leatherhead. So the Riverside Quarter comprises Clare House and James House, the Riverside Park, and flood alleviation measures. What they're seeking to achieve is a new gateway to Leatherhead, the creation of an attractive leisure area, homes for people, a new cafe and community space, and better connectivity to the rest of Leatherhead Town Centre and beyond to the area of outstanding national beauty. The area we call the Retail and Leisure Quarter is comprised of Church Street, the Swan Centre, the wider High Street, and includes Town Centre public realm. What are we trying to achieve? Well, we were seeking to introduce leisure uses as another retail, a hotel, more office space to get more workers into the town centre. We want to introduce a small amount of housing, again to help sustain our town centre offer. And again, connectivity and better circulation is key. Bull Hill or Red House Gardens is the key area within the urban quarter. But the urban quarter also includes initiatives relating to transport and car parking and sustainable transport. We're seeking to reduce congestion, manage it better, make sure the car parking is fit for purpose and balances the needs of all. We need to create better links for people on bikes, pedestrians, and those who want to access the railway. Again, housing for people and office and employment uses are also key. The combination of all these initiatives aims to create a stronger population in the town centre, more footfall to support our businesses, better access, leisure offer, enhanced retail offer, a destination encouraging people to come and stay, and facilities that support all of those uses, combined with a safe environment, all of which should boost our local economy. And this is how we seek to deliver our vision, your vision, for Leatherhead, a friendly, vibrant and lively modern market town where people of all ages can shop, eat, relax, and most importantly, have fun by the riverside. Reassuringly, it's not just the Transform Leatherhead team who are articulating this message. There have been a lot of thought leadership pieces in the press recently. So the recent Timpson report, which then preempted the Future High Street Fund initiative, Institute of Place Management have published thought leadership pieces on how to create a sustainable town centre. And just in the last couple of weeks, the Select Committee for Housing, Communities and Local Government published their thought piece, High Streets and Town Centres in 2030. Despite what the press would have us believe, the High Street is not dead. It's evolved in the past and adapted to change, and it will do it again. And the Select Committee recognised that an intervention is required to make that happen, and believe that local authorities are best placed to help lever that major intervention. I've put up there the quote that we thought encapsulated the main message from that piece of work. And what we think is great is it's almost a direct quote from the Transform Leatherhead Vision and Master Plan, and echoes exactly what we're trying to do with you, the community's help. Just a reminder of how we balance the competing interests that underpin all of the Transform Leatherhead projects. One key driver is what we're doing consistent with the aims of the master plan? That's the definition of positive change. Is there a wider community benefit as well as directly benefiting the centre of Leatherhead? And then thirdly, but still important, does it make economic sense in a holistic sense of the word? Are there short or long-term benefits to the local economy? Is there a return on our investment? But it's important to note that Transform Leatherhead is not about making money. It's not our asset investment strategy. Since the last forum, we've done a range of asset management works to the Swan Centre. And although Simon's not here in person, he had recorded a short piece on site at the Swan Centre to give you an update on what's been happening.
Our work on refurbishing the Swan Centre is a key part of our efforts to improve the retail and leisure quarter of the town. We're doing both long and short-term works, and the aim is to act as a catalyst to improve the lot of the high street. Short-term works began last year. So far we've got brand new toilets, which includes baby and changing facilities. The work that we've done to the car park has improved the access and facilities on all levels. We've got new small cars and motorcycle bays, easier to turn into ramps, we've cut back the curbs, and we've improved the general look of the car park. Our new website, which includes the new brand for the Swan Centre, is up and running. Please do have a look. Our second phase of work includes introducing new parking machines to make life easier for people to get in and out of the car park, signs and electric car charging points. The next phase after that will be lift replacements, which we're hoping to be completed by the end of June. The final stage of the current batch of works is to reconfigure the staircase up into the car park, which will make space for the new retail unit to be introduced. There'll be fresh signage, and we're hoping that this will all be completed by the end of September this year.
So as a reminder, if you want to keep track of the programme of works, please do go to our Transform Leatherhead website. At this point, I'd like to introduce John Percy, who many of you may have heard speak before. He comes from our appointed consultants, Cushman & Wakefield's, and will introduce some of the exciting work that his firm have delivered on behalf of the team in relation to the future vision for the Swan Centre.
Emma, thank you for the introduction, and good evening, Leatherhead, and it's great to be back here again after having presented at one of these earlier forums, and there's some really exciting challenges and words which are coming out of your programme. I think transform must be the right basis on which to look at the opportunity that the Swan Centre brings, and right from the off, when we became involved in this project, we were certainly attracted by the scale of opportunity that sits here and the level of enthusiasm and commitment, both from the people and residents around the centre, but from the officer team who've been involved in it. And this presentation this evening is just to give you a short update as to some of the work we've been undertaking and what that might mean in a physical sense for the actual building. I think in order to put everything into context, I'm going to take you through some of the things that are happening in the retail industry more generally, how we might go about creating a bit more of a destination for Leatherhead from the Swan Centre, and then what's there now and how that might come to transform into the new scheme. So to start with, it's fair to say that the retail industry and the retail world is changing at a faster pace than ever before. And that is impacting on our shopping places, our high streets, our shopping centres all over the country. And in a time when product sales are becoming more and more commoditised, then what does it mean to want to have to come to a physical location? And these kind of words are part of what is going to make somewhere successful at a physical sense and a local level. And that where, from a sales perspective, currently around about 20% of everything that we now buy online. And that has changed over that 10 years where it was less than 5%. Now, that's got to impact on the amount of floor space that we need. And retailers themselves are having to take quite a long time to adapt to what that means for them and how a store fits in with what is an omni or all-channel approach to capturing sales. And that has led to a bit of a polarization of actual locations themselves. So you're seeing continued success of very large shopping centres which provide what's called sort of comparison goods sales. And that becomes a bit of a destination, a day out for someone. And then the more convenience-led offer, which also provides a need and therefore a reason for people to visit somewhere. And actually the difficulty and the places that have struggled the most are perhaps those which fall between those two gaps and offer neither of those things particularly successfully. And arguably that's where Leatherhead falls now and is really failing to capitalise on the big opportunity which sits there for it. And therefore, what does it mean to try and create what we're classifying as a sort of local destination, which is the big opportunity for the Swan Centre? Well, it's about having convenience, and that includes things like the Sainsbury's and the food store, which is there now, but it's also incorporating other uses, things that are going to extend the dwell time and the use of the centre beyond just the shopping times. So it can be a cinema, it can be the introduction of extra restaurants and leisure uses, but also it's having other elements, perhaps small offices and space for small businesses, and a real social space for people to meet and enjoy within the heart of the town centre. And above all, it's got to be something a bit different. So it's got to offer you some reason to want to come and visit it. And we've been exploring some options that might allow us to be able to do that. And we've tried to encapsulate, you've got the wider Transform Leatherhead vision, but this, in one sentence, is what we want for this. So it's something unique, and it's where people will want to live, because we're going to have houses within the new Swan Centre. And around it, and it's somewhere where people are going to want to do business and spend their leisure time. But it's not easy. Town centre locations are pretty constrained, and that is a plan of the existing shopping centre, and you can see the car park sitting at the back there. Sainsbury's around about here and the rest of the centre here, and here's the high street. So whilst you think, okay, fine, let's knock it all down and start again, that isn't necessarily the answer, and it's certainly not necessarily going to keep the town centre ticking over that period of time. So it's about trying to incorporate those uses in a way which is sustainable and in a way that is not going to totally damage and destroy the trade with the town centre during those period of works. And the mix of uses, so this is the centre now and the kind of uses that are there. So blue reflects shops, and you've got the Sainsbury's there in the orange colour. And the pinky is where you've got some restaurants and food offer. So it's very much dominated by retail as it stands. And then going forward, it's about having a much broader mix of uses that sit around it. And we see opportunities for hotel to sit on Lerwick Way and to kind of soften how that elevation looks as you approach the centre itself. The opportunity for a cinema to sit above some of the shops in this bottom corner. And then you've got space to accommodate housing and other parts within there. So within what is in a constrained site, the team have put together what is quite an innovative and interesting plan to be able to deliver that change. And we think if it's done successfully and it's done well, then it'll be pretty amazing and certainly something very, very different for the town and actually something very, very different for this area of Surrey. And that kind of mix of uses there just gives an idea of the scale of development which is being proposed. And there are some very sort of early on artist impressions of what some of the elevations and so on might look like. But there's a lot more work that's going to come in to do that. But I would concentrate in terms of having a look at what the mix of uses are rather than any of the pictures at this stage. And then there's obviously the work in terms of how that will wider support the high street. Emma, thanks.
Thanks, John. You might be surprised, or you may not be surprised, though, that we kind of stalk Leatherhead Living to see what kind of response that come out when we publish reports and papers. And I was really pleased, actually, to see the breadth and depth of positive feedback that, on balance, generally came across through people's comments when they saw the proposed master plan. I'm sure there'll be questions about it. How will we do it? There's still quite a lot of work to do to work out how we translate that vision into reality, but we'll pick that up as part of the Q&A. I think what we recognise is that we can't just bank on long-term redevelopment plans to rescue Leatherhead Town Centre. We have a high street now and it needs help now. And so what we've been doing is engaging in a whole range of different initiatives to try and help our high streets continue to thrive despite all the challenges there are currently in the retail market. And up on the slide there is just a few of the initiatives that are currently underway. So, for example, we're working with the economic development team to support the Leatherhead Events Working Group. A business reference group has been formed, which helps ensure the business perspective, not just the retailers, but the wider business group's perspective on Transform Leatherhead is heard. We're working really closely with the Chamber of Commerce to try and work out how we can support and enhance the existing market's offer. We have initiated this year a High Street improvement study in response and building on the work that was put in by the Leatherhead Residents Association with their High Street petition. And we're also really pleased to be working on a bid application to the Future High Streets Fund. And I'll touch on both those two elements in a minute. As some of you may be aware, we have invested our own money, or taxpayers' money, I should say, into acquiring 2 units on the High Street, 21 and 23. We've just tendered the refit works to 21 High Street, and we have a potential new tenant lined up and ready to go once those works are complete. Last night, our planning application for a change of use to the upper floors for 23 High Street was approved, and we have a temporary occupier in the former Carphone Warehouse, Book Potato, which we think it doesn't quite replace Barton's bookshops. Nobody could do that, but it helps ensure we have access to books in our town centre. Future High Streets Fund. Last autumn, there was a big announcement by the government that they were launching a £675 million fund to provide funding towards capital projects that bring about transformative change, using words like helping local high streets adapt, create vibrant town centres where people live, shop, use services and spend their leisure time. Again, it's almost word for word likeness to Transform Leatherhead's vision. The aims of the fund are really close aligned with what we're doing and have been doing and what we're seeking to achieve. And on the back of that, and on the back of the support that we have had for the Transform Leatherhead vision, the Cabinet decided at its 5th of February Cabinet meeting to nominate Leatherhead over Dorking for nomination for the fund. We could only choose one town, and Leatherhead got that vote. The work we've done, and with your support to date, means that we have a really good chance of putting forward a comprehensive and robust bid for inclusion in the fund. We have a range of deliverable projects that are at a stage, whilst not quite shovel-ready, are certainly well on their way to being so. All of our aims are the aims that are consistent with the aims of the fund. However, does it mean we're going to be successful? There's no guarantee. I think they estimated the prospectus had been downloaded over 1,000 times by the middle of January. And I think given a choice between funding what seemed to be the affluent, problem-free south over the more challenged north, the risk is that the northern towns will get priority over us. But we're going to give it our very best shot. Where can you help? Well, in your packs on your chairs, we've included a pink card saying, bid for the Future High Streets Fund. And on the reverse, we'd be really grateful if you could lend us your support. And for every person who supports us, we will reference this in our bid. Other ways you can help: you can send in a letter via email or by post. We've put a template letter on our website if you would like some help with forming those words. Or otherwise, if you want a soft copy of this form, again, it's on our website. We really, really need and appreciate your support, and the more support we can evidence, the better chance we have of being successful. So please, please do take the time to help us. I also mentioned the High Street Improvement Study. So as I mentioned, there was a really strongly supported petition from a whole array of businesses in the High Street asking for us to take action to help support footfall for their businesses. The master plan always envisaged that the High Street would be the historic heart of Leatherhead, or is the historic heart of Leatherhead, and needs to be a focal place for gathering and activity. And this study helps us understand how this vision can be developed and delivered on the ground, and forms part of the overall work we're looking to deliver around transport and movement and public realm. So at the start of the year, we appointed a firm called Arcadis, who are a global design and consultancy firm in natural and built environment. And you may have noticed a few weeks ago that cameras were being erected on poles. Nothing too big brother, we're just using them to capture footfall and movement data along the high street, coupled with automatic traffic count information to help capture movement flows up and down and around the high street. Further work includes a safety review by Surrey County Council, and the next key date is a stakeholder workshop on the 20th of March at the Fairfield Centre. It's so critical that businesses do come. We need your voice to be heard, because we need to get these changes right for you. Once we've got your feedback and we've got the data collated, a short list of options will be drawn up and appraised. We've asked them to give us short to medium-term options, so 0 to 5-year time horizon, and 2 long-term options, so 5 to 10-year time horizon. We will go out to public consultation. Dates are still to be set, but we anticipate it will be in the June, July time of year. We don't want to do it over the August holiday season. That moves me on to transport. We've talked a lot about the transport model. It was announced at the Spring Forum last year. It's a complex piece of work that has involved gathering the data, constructing the model, populating it, doing various audit checks to make sure it's robust and isn't flawed in any way. But to help you understand and visualise what something quite abstract actually looks like, we've produced a very short video which hopefully helps demonstrate what this can do.
This is a video clip which shows a 3D traffic simulation of the Leatherhead Paramix Discovery traffic model created by WSP. Paramix Discovery modelling software reproduces real-world traffic conditions in a computer model by simulating detailed individual vehicle behaviour on a user-defined road network. The video is an extract of the morning peak time traffic using survey data from 2018. The modelling software has been sped up to 5 times the normal speed. The clip has shown the modelled network, the gyratory, Knoll roundabout, Junction 9 and the Plough roundabout. The software allows you to see the vehicles in detail travelling along Leatherhead's highway network.
So as a non-traffic modelling expert, I think that's really kind of cool. But the power of it is enables us to model potential solutions in a simulated environment before then committing further funds and time into working up detailed feasibility studies. So the traffic model has looked at the gyratory, but we knew that you can't resolve congestion and manage congestion on the gyratory in isolation. It has to be looked at as part of a wider context. So the model also looked at the traffic flows along the bypass as far as junction 9 to make sure that we took a holistic view of traffic in and around Leatherhead. It also took into account future year development through the local plan period up to 2033 to make sure it took account of future planned housing growth in our district. The final report is due any minute now, in fact, but the early indications are that to fix the problems in the town, we have to look at resolving some of the congestion and the key bypass junctions in the wider road network. Surrey County Council are the Highways Authority, and they are working at exploring options and funding for those options for the A243 and the A24, working with their partners, the Highways Agency, Highways England, and Moore Valley District Council from a Chancel and Leatherhead perspective and planning policy perspective. And we would look to Surrey County Council to take forward the wider road network improvements we anticipate will need to be delivered in partnership with Highways England. From our perspective, from Moore Valley's perspective, once we have the final report, we will then take a report through to our executive members, ask them to approve the recommendations as to what solutions should be explored at detailed feasibility stage. It is a long-term piece of work, this. It will need significant funding, and that funding will not come from Moore Valley or Surrey County Council alone. It will most likely to be funded through central government funding and or developer contributions. So a key part of work for us and the Surrey County Council team is monitoring every opportunity we can for funding for infrastructure in the road network. Sustainable transport. This has been much, much harder than we thought to get any positive traction on, but we've kept going and having Stacey, our transport planner, working in partnership between Surrey County Council and Moore Valley has definitely made a difference. We've regrouped and refined our approach to sustainable transport and broken it down into 3 distinct phases. The first phase is working with the business park shuttle bus and looking at how we can better work with them in terms of travel planning. And that's a work stream that's currently being progressed by Moore Valley and Surrey County Council. We're looking at what funding is already available through Section 106 contributions and what's forecast, and looking at how we can work with the businesses to try and reduce the amount of private shuttle buses and put in place a shuttle service that works for the north-west of Leatherhead, connecting into the town centre and the station. Phase 2 is looking at improving walking and cycling routes between the town station, the station and the town centre and beyond. And the final stage is looking wider across Leatherhead and the wider connectivity to Fetcham, Bookham and Ashted. The long-term goal is to try and reduce the amount of traffic on our roads because the highway space is finite at the end of the day, so we need to find other ways of freeing up space on the network to accommodate growth. This is our famous, well I think it's famous, dependency diagram where we try and explain all the different connections between key parts of the projects that relate to the urban quarter. And I think we said that once we had refined and understood better what the vision was for the Swan Centre, once we understood the direction of travel for the transport solutions, we'd start to focus on what the options might be for Bull Hill. And as part of the local plan development, we are starting to look at it from a planning policy perspective. So thinking about it from a planning policy perspective, we looked at the kinds of uses that we think that site could and should accommodate. At the moment, Bull Hill comprises office space in the form of Fairmont House, and a vast extent of surface level car park, and some beautiful open space. When the master plan was first promoted, it envisaged Bull Hill providing a retail core extension. So additional retail in the southeast corner of the site, providing a continuation and link into the retail uses in the town centre. That was back in 2016, but the pace of change in the retail market has been so dramatic that we have moved on from that initial vision. And now the range of uses we think would best work for Leatherhead, and taking into account the objectives of the local plan, is we are looking at a mix of uses, including residential use, as well as retaining that precious open space, introducing multi-storey car parking, which is a more efficient use of land, retaining that office space so we have workers directly in the town centre, and community space, either to take account of the Fairfield Centre services and perhaps looking at some of the opportunities arising out of the change in service provision that County Council are considering, see whether we can create a better anchor for that in our town centre. Flood alleviation. So the key players in flood alleviation and flood risk management are the Environment Agency and Surrey County Council, respectively. And we act as a facilitator, really to ensure that the interests of our residents are met. So most recently, the Environment Agency presented at their exhibition on the 20th of February an update on all the work they've been undertaking following the flooding in 2013 and 2014. And having done a detailed technical and viability analysis, they went through a short list of options looking at storage to building walls, redirecting and or altering the flow of water through the town. But disappointingly, really, from our perspective, we were unable to come up with a really significant solution that had the wow, this is a significant change factor. There's no one technical or financial solution that can properly address the combination of surface water flood risk and river water flood risk. They haven't given up. They're going to carry on trying to see what other options they can come up with that would help. But for now, in the short term, they're proposing property-level resilience measures for approximately 170 homes that are identified as at risk. And part of the exhibition on the 28th of February was to encourage local residents to sign up with them to access the financial support and technical support to deliver those property-level measures. As I've said, we will carry on working with both the Environment Agency and Surrey County Council to try and promote and support and identify where we can long-term options to reduce the risk of flooding, including sustainable drainage, and looking elsewhere within the catchment area for the River Mole to try and reduce the flow of water through the town. And for any of those who couldn't make the exhibition on the 28th, we have copies of all their exhibition materials on our website under the news section. So please do take a look if you missed it. Another project in the Riverside Quarter is Clare House and James House, and I suspect many of you know that we submitted our outline planning application last November. We've had lots of consultation with our planning colleagues, and we're really grateful for everybody who took the time to submit a response to the statutory planning consultation. We recently had in the response from Historic England, and we're currently reviewing all the feedback to try and work out what we can do in relation to the scheme. And we have an expert heritage consultant, Mr. Dr. Cooper, who's helping us understand and seek to address the heritage concerns. If all goes to plan, we would like our Development Control Committee to consider the application at its meeting in June. But in the interim, we have had approval from our Cabinet members to progress with seeking a development partner, so we're just about to commence the marketing of the site. Riverside Park. We've just started to progress this project. Now the bulk of the work on Clare House and James House is complete, at least from our perspective. We have obtained an ecological assessment and back report at the start of the year, which was undertaken last autumn, and it recognises, as most of you will know, that it's a significant wildlife corridor and has high ecological value. So whilst we want to create a destination in the form of Riverside Park, we have to work to support and complement those significant features. We need to try and find a use that's compatible with preserving and managing the value that it brings in terms of wildlife and ecological value. We're working really closely with our colleagues in parks, and we're working next autumn with a variety of organisations who have a special interest in the protection of that site, trying to identify uses that are compatible with preservation of that area. But in the meantime, it was spring a couple of weeks ago. It feels a bit more wintry tonight, and the weather's not great this weekend. But spring is on the horizon, and we'd really like you to get out there and enjoy the riverside as it currently is. Colleagues in the form of Rod Shaw in our planning policy team put together this beautiful riverside walk trail, pictured up on the screen. And colleagues in the Walking for Health team, they run a walk from Leatherhead Theatre along the riverside every second Saturday of the month. It's about an hour. You don't need to book. You can just turn up. It's led by a specialist walking leader, and it's a great way to get out with like-minded people and see what the riverside has to offer you, as it is. Transform Leatherhead. We want to take this opportunity to reinforce that transforming Leatherhead means transforming it for the benefit of everybody. And since the last forum, work has started with the North Leatherhead community in the form of a listening exercise, where we have an organisation who specialises in development work, engaging with the relevant local community and key stakeholders in that area to better understand what their wants are and what their needs are. That piece of work will feed into a feasibility study, funding for which was approved as part of the Council's meeting in February, to look at what services can and should be delivered from a location in North Leatherhead in the form of a community hub. And we're talking with Surrey County Council, Clarion and other service providers in that area to see if we can bring together a whole host of services and opportunities for the benefit of that local community. On this slide is a brief overview of the key pieces of work as we currently see them for the next year. Our immediate priority is getting a really robust and well-researched Future High Streets Fund bid in. The deadline for submission officially is the 22nd of March. We're targeting the 20th in case of last-minute IT glitches. So again, if I could just remind you to please, please, please show us your support by submitting the card online or physically tonight. And if you'd rather write a letter, that would be great too. We will definitely, all of your support will be counted and included in our submission. The master plan is going for our cabinet on the 26th of this month. We hope to agree a route to market in June this year, and the immediate works to the Swan Centre are forecast to be completed in September. The transport works take slightly longer, but we anticipate a consultation in the summer, and we'll be looking to progress recommended solutions to the gyratory later on this year. As I've said before, planning for Clare House and James House, if we can, we'd like to target June committee. We hope to have an update by the time of the next forum in terms of who will take forward the redevelopment of Clare House and James House, and workshops for key interested parties for the Riverside Park will be scheduled for this autumn. I just wanted to basically publicise a few events that Moore Valley is leading on, partly through Lambert Smith Hampton, who manage the Swan Centre on our behalf. So they have their arts and crafts market on the first Saturday of every month, well publicised on social media. Please do take some time out of your busy schedules and pop down. To celebrate Easter, they have their dragon egg hunt, and I think for Mother's Day there's also another market proposed. So if you need a special gift for that special person in your life, please do go and take advantage of what they have to offer. The duck race, weather and river levels permitting, is booked for the 9th of June this year, so we really hope it goes ahead this time. And the local plan consultation is scheduled to go out in June. There's also another new event, which is not a Moore Valley one, but I've seen well publicised on Facebook, and that's the Leatherhead Carnival. It's a small group of business people who want to do something different and exciting for Leatherhead, in the form of a sort of Caribbean-influenced carnival. I didn't think there'd been a carnival in Leatherhead, but apparently there used to be one, which involved floats. This is slightly different, but I think what's clear is that for it to happen, it really needs community and voluntary support and financial support from businesses. I think the estimate is going to cost in the region of $30,000 to put on a really high-quality event, and it takes a huge amount of effort and dedication to bring something like that off. So it's booked provisionally, I think, for May 27th. But if there are people here or listening or viewing who are happy and willing to get involved, I know they'd love to hear from you. And on that note, before I move on to the Q&A, again, the usual thanks to everybody who helps and supports and talks to us and engages with us and expresses their views. Whether or not we always see things in the same way, we really value and appreciate your feedback. And that's just a few of the partners that we've listed up there. And if I've missed you out, we're really sorry, but we do really appreciate your help. So at that point, I'd like to introduce you to the panel. Again, Simon unfortunately can't make it, but as well as myself, we have Andrew Ward, who's our Investment and Regeneration Manager for Mar Valley. Alison Woolgar, who some of you may know as well, is our Principal Project Surveyor, and we have John Percy, who's Head of Development and Place. So we're just going to shuffle across to the panel, and then we look forward to taking your questions. So perhaps I should have said that this evening we're trying out a different way of making the questions flow more smoothly. So I have Gail on my right and I have Natalie on my left, each of whom have a mic. So if you would like to ask a question, you could just pop your hand up and they will get to you as quickly as they can. And again, if you can please just bear with us, we will try to get to as many people as we can tonight, but if we don't get to you, please do submit a question in writing on the cards in your packs, and we will definitely follow up with a response in writing. Thank you. So.
Hi, it's
Hello,
Peter. Firstly, don't forget the Drama Festival. You are in the theatre and it is coming.
Yeah.
Red House grounds and the gyratory system. I wonder whether your consideration of the traffic is just the gyratory system or whether you are looking closely at the town centre and the current one-way system within the town. I get the impression that the gyratory system and that film suggested you were just looking at the bypasses rather than the flows within the town, which I think is at least as important, because rush hour only lasts for an hour. The rest of the using the town for the whole day.
Thank you, Peter. So perhaps I didn't give a very good impression. So the transport model is focusing on the traffic movements within the heart of Leatherhead Town Centre, as well as taking into account the wider movements around.
So, any chance of seeing the report and the brief that was given to the surveyors?
The specification is in the public domain, so we can definitely make that available, and the report's awaited imminently and will be the subject of a report taken forward to either our June or September Cabinet, depending on agenda planning. So it will be made public soon. Thank you, Peter.
Residents Association, access for the disabled. Stage 1 of the Swan Centre refurbishment. May I make a modest request? We still do not have a toilet roll holder in the disabled toilet. I did recommend a piece of string, but the toilet roll is moved from place to place where people who only have the use of one arm cannot use the toilet paper. Sometimes it's high up on the raised arm, and sometimes it's a large roll balanced on the handrail where you can't turn the toilet roll round.
We will. Thank you very much for your feedback. It's very disappointing, obviously, to hear that, and we will get on to that straight away.
Hello, I'm from the Leatherhead Carnival Group. I'd like to thank you very much for giving us a plug today. And if anybody is interested in the carnival and would like to support us in any way, we're here. So please do approach us. I do have one question, though, arising from that. On Tuesday, we had a little walk around the street, looking at down, up and down the high street, looking at the sort of issues that we should be aware of as a responsible carnival group. And I was a little bit concerned about the state of disrepair and the state of general muckiness in some areas of the pavement. Now, obviously, we want to showcase the town, and this applies not just to the carnival, but to the whole future of the high street. Can we be reassured that we're going to have high-quality cleansing and maintenance of the high street, despite all of these wonderful plans, which I do truly support? Thank you.
So we'll take it up with our street cleaning contractor, which is currently Veolia. We have a new contractor taking over the contract on the 1st of April. That contract has a different specification, and I would hope that would translate into a higher quality cleaning regime on the ground, but thank you for the feedback.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Caroline Brown, and I represent the Leatherhead Residents Association. With regard to the muckiness of the high street, this wasn't my main question, but having heard it, I have already brought that to the attention of Mr. Rod Shaw, and he is working on it as well. So there'll be two people pressing for that now. I know just what she means. Now, my main question was, have you got any plans for all the empty shops, which are so miserable to look at? I did a quick list down here, but you know which ones they are. I got at least 6 just by sort of remembering them. Have you got an overall plan? Are you approaching a particular group or firm or something like that who could suggest people to go in it? Or would you like us as residents to suggest retailers that would be welcome?
Either of you?
Okay. Yeah, well, in response to that question, yes, we do have people that are doing that for us. We have Lambert Hampton, which is a name that Emma has mentioned earlier, who are the managing agents of the Swan Centre, but they also look at the wider town for us. And we are doing all we can to make sure that we do attract retailers to the town. And we're not just focused on the Swan Centre. We're passionately committed to improving the high street. And that is what the High Street Improvement Study is all about. And indeed, that's why our application to the High Street Fund is so important. We do realise that the High Street needs to improve. And part of that improvement would be improving the public realm and a whole host of issues that we are aware of and considering. We have been very proactive. We have approached a lot of retailers that we've identified, as well as our commercial agents have identified. It can be rather frustrating at times because it's the setup cost that sometimes puts retailers off looking at the town and taking their interest forward. But it's something that we're passionate about. But if there is a particular retailer that you think we should be approaching, please do contact us. And we'll share our contact information with you. We'd be delighted to hear from you.
Thank you. Then the next meeting about the High Street.
Yes.
Thank you.
Just to build on what Andrew was saying, I think Alison has been looking into the meanwhile.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. So I've recently attended a local government association workshop where the people responsible for the Future High Street Fund were presenting, and we were able to question them, which was really useful. They also confirmed that they have, in addition to the pure financial funding, they're setting up this task force group to support councils with high streets. And one of the initiatives they've got, and they've got at the moment a pilot study, is about putting the landlords of empty shop units in touch with communities so that you can find people to go in temporarily. And obviously we're really pleased. You'll know the news that about Book Potato, and that's something that sort of came about through spotting their request for premises on social media, and we've been trying to identify a permanent tenant for the former Carphone warehouse. So we approached them and said, well, actually, come here as a pop-up. And obviously Peter very kindly gave him his old bookcases and display equipment. So actually, that's at least from our point of view, it's getting somebody in doing something active, and keeping another bookshop when we're sadly lost one.
Activity.
Exactly.
Good evening, Paul Purcell. Thank you, first of all, for mentioning earlier North Leatherhead, because we're often forgotten, so thank you very much. Secondly, you touched on a hub in North Leatherhead for the community. I don't know if you're aware of the NLCA, which is quite underfunded, underused, and would be a perfect place to have a hub. Very nice building. So, yeah, what were your thoughts on that?
Exactly what you've just said, actually. So the North Leatherhead Community Association came back into sort of MVDC's control when the former trustees kind of surrendered the lease to us. We've been managing it on an interim basis. It doesn't quite work as well as it could and should do. So it may be through some form of adaptation, refurb, knock down, start again. I don't know. That's what the feasibility study will help explore.
Don't think local people will be happy if you knocked it down. It's a very lovely building.
When I say knock down and start again, there are different ways that could be accommodated, but I think it's trying to come up with an asset that supports a whole range of different uses, including some of the uses that Surrey County Council are seeking to move on to what they call an outreach basis. So that's the idea.
So will you be helping to fund it? Because it is very run down. It hasn't been painted in years. It's very, very run down. And I'm a member of it, so I'm quite passionate about it. And they're good people in there.
Absolutely.
And they would openly welcome some help.
So we have invested money into sort of basically making sure it's safe to use and still occupy, and that was our first priority. I think we're hesitating for undertake any further investment until we know what the thing should be for. In terms of funding works to it, I suspect that will come through the form of developer contributions, because quite often for schemes they're required to support community facilities. I don't have all the answers just yet, but the listening exercise coupled with the feasibility study should help sort of make that concept a bit more real and tangible as to what we're looking to achieve.
Well, thank you again, and I hope you can help it.
Thank you.
Colin Langley, declared interest. I'm a director of this theatre. You are obviously promoting the idea of a cinema in the longer-term development of the Swan Centre. I was interested to see that it seems to be taking hold as it's on the front page of the Leatherhead Advertiser today. Can you tell me, or tell the audience rather, at what stage, what kind of time stage you see that, and also whether that Cinema 5 screening group will allow screening in of live performances from other theatres?
Ali, would you like to take that?
Yeah. So the programme for the Swan Centre, as Emma outlined, we go back in June, and then we will go through procurement and planning, which is likely to take a couple of years, and that's before we start building, which is likely to take another couple of years, but could be phased. So that sort of gives an idea of the timescales. We have, through the work we've been doing with John, we've got the local population, the amount of people within the sort of 20-minute drive time indicates that there is the available spend to support actually quite a large cinema within the Swan Centre. But the site is sort of dictating that it is going to be smaller, and actually when we're looking at accommodating the mix of uses, That's sort of, it's likely to be up to 5 screens is what we're thinking. In terms of who it's going to be and what they're going to do, it's as yet too early to tell. There's a number of operators that so far with John's team have expressed interest, which is encouraging, because normally from what John says, at this stage you're sort of struggling to get people interested. So that's actually a testament to the available spend in the wider catchment. I think we kind of see it being, like I say, a sort of smaller cinema rather than a great big multiplex is just our feel of where it's going at the moment.
I think just to add to what Alison has said, is that we think the two can coexist. We would see it occupying a different market to the market that the theatre supports and services. So we think there's enough space and enough people who would attend both for one to support the other. As in, you pop to Leatherhead to go to the new one, and you notice, oh great, there's the Leather Theatre and they've got their own programme showing, and vice versa. So I think it will help both of you rather than undermine the other. That's the aim. The same question arises in fact to Dorking Halls, which is Moore Valley owned and operated, and we have to subsidise that to keep it going. So we are looking really carefully at the impact on Leatherhead and Dorking theatres as to what a new cinema offer might do.
The second part of my question was to do with the screening in. Screening in to this theatre,
yeah,
which by the way has got the largest screen in Surrey, celebrates its 50th anniversary this year and has become an important part of the sustainability of the theatre, which Moore Valley know from me and other people gets no public subsidy. Mm-hmm. It is unlike Dorking Theatre, the Playhouse in Epsom, yep, Rose Theatre elsewhere, only theatre in Surrey not to get public grants.
As I said, I think we recognise that there are concerns, and we're doing our best to understand what the impact might be, but it's too soon to say what they will or won't screen. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Linda Tippout. I'm the chairman of the Leatherhead and Fetch and Flood Action Group. Following the 2013 and 2014 floods, and at the first Transform Leatherhead display held here in the theatre, an amount of money was said to have been put aside for flood alleviation. I was told this was ring-fenced for the flood alleviation scheme, which we now know is not going to be built. What is going to happen to that money now?
I think that's a question that only the Environment Agency could answer, and I'm afraid they're not here tonight. So what we'll do is take a note of it and we'll try and get an answer back to you.
We've had a question in on Facebook, someone just wanting to build on the question regarding the cinema. They were wondering what the evidence that you're basing your argument that having both a cinema and theatre is possible, and how does Transform propose in supporting its theatre?
Ali?
Yeah, so with John, we've actually, Cushman and Wakefield have been doing a study on this. John, do you want to talk about that? Or?
Yes, I mean, we've been looking at evidence from around the country where there has been a new cinema developed alongside an existing theatre, and where there's any impact that derives from that. So the conclusions we don't have yet, that's still being drawn up at the moment. But certainly one of the ambitions of the programme is to increase the leisure facilities within the town centre as a whole. And having the cinema will help increase the amount of people who are coming here in the evening. And if it becomes known as a more of a destination, then that can only be a positive thing in terms of the way that affects the theatre and also people's perceptions of how they might use the town and the town centre. And we'd very much like to sort of build in with the operator when they come forward how they're going to run that business in a way that's sustainable alongside the existing uses within the town and the theatre.
Thank you.
Hello. I'm concerned about the height of the buildings you're proposing in Leatherhead. There's a lot of offices now being turned into flats because they can't be occupied. You're increasing the heights of some of these. Leatherhead is a low town. It is not a high-rise place. A lot of your pictures, yes, artist's impression, well, someone's given the impression, because they're up to 9 stories high in Leatherhead. You want to put more offices in Leatherhead? You can't fill what we've got because they're turning them into houses. What is happening? Leatherhead is not a nice place to live anymore, and I've lived here for 30 years.
I'll take it. Yes, in answer to your question, we have not actually got plans that actually are showing 9 stories in any of our transform.
That was back from the original Transform Leatherhead master plan.
Yeah.
The picture you're alluding to is the artist's impression for Red House Grounds, Bull Hill, which was the image that the original master plan has put together. But it is just an artist's impression, and I think because you don't have anything to replace it with is the honest answer to that. But great, submit it as Transform Leatherhead. We'd love to see what you produce.
No, we are very aware of the feeling that's coming back from the community with regards to height, and our plans and aspirations for Bull Hill are very, very fluid at the moment, so we have not made any decisions whatsoever. And obviously, by the very process, we'll be going through a degree of consultation on that when the time comes. So I think this image that you've seen, as Emma says, it is a historic image, and it's not what we are presently thinking. With regards to the second element of your question concerning why are we building more offices, we're not going out to build offices per se, but what we are saying is that with regards to the Swan Centre in particular, there might be a market requirement for a work hub kind of office element, which is very different to what the town presently has. The idea is it would be there to support and enhance and bring forward people within the town, give them a location to base themselves if they're working at home presently on their own or working remotely and feel isolated. It gives them an avenue to spar off co-workers, and that is the way forward. And we'd be very keen to incorporate an element of that within the Swan Centre. So we're not looking to reproduce what the town already has.
But Clare House, the pictures that they're up to 6 stories now. There are only 4 at the moment.
That's correct.
You're showing them as 6.
So that is what we've got out.
You're giving the impression of everything is going to be high-rise around here. And that's the impression you are giving.
Yes.
If it's wrong, change it now.
So every development site we'll look at on a case-by-case basis. You're absolutely right. Clare House and James House does go up as high as 6 stories, and that's that one application that we have submitted. Whether or not it'll get approval is in the hands of Development Control Committee, and they'll reach their own decision based on the same planning considerations that apply to every other developer in and around the district. It does have to be recognised, though, that in terms of national planning policy, which is what's set by central government, they are encouraging higher densification of residential use in sustainable town centre locations to satisfy the need for more housing and to ease the pressure on greenfield sites. So we are, like any other developer, responding to that. But if it's not accepted on planning terms, it won't get consent. It's as simple as that. Just to pick up another point you made, which is around why introduce more office use, because we have empty offices now. You're right. The fact is that the existing offices aren't what today's office occupiers want or need for their workforces, and all the landlords have got unrealistic expectations of what they can rent them out at. So there's a mismatch there between demand and supply. And into that gap go people who can see more value in residential use. So it's just market influences. But there is still a need for employment, and there's demand for a high-quality employment space in Leatherhead.
Hi, I'm a new girl to all this. It's very exciting coming from another local authority where they were struggling to transform their own high street. And in fact, they found that markets were the key, not only for enlivening the streets, but also for growing their own talent and retailers to go into empty shop units, exactly the same as you have. What I'm struggling to get with my first contact here is I see all the buildings. It's a bit like a Monopoly game, and the blocks go into place, and why you need certain things to offset the cost of other things, and why you've done all these capacity studies. But I don't really get what kind of personality you're aiming at for Leatherhead. I know that other towns differentiate. If you want to draw in businesses and if you want to draw in visitors, it seems to me there needs to be more of a sense of what your USP is, your unique selling point. Are you going to be a market town or a foodie destination, or a garden town? But where are you really going? Otherwise, you risk just having a lot of bits of building and no heart and soul. There's no mention of artists, and the public realm seems about keeping things neat and tidy rather than about fountains and statues or whatever it happens to be. I can't get what this new Leatherhead might feel like.
Okay, well, to try and address that question, I think what we're wanting to do is to reposition Leatherhead as a modern market town. And I know that sounds like an easy-to-say phrase, and what does it actually mean? Well, the last thing we want to do is to turn our back on the town's heritage and historic credentials. I think collectively as a team, we feel as though the town needs to do more of shouting about some of the brilliant buildings that we've got and the heritage that brings. But we also are mindful that, yes, we do want to attract a new type of resident. We do want to bring more homes within the town centre, because that is the way that we're going to transform and revitalise the town centre. We've talked extensively this evening about the need to revitalise the high street. Well, one of the ways of doing that is to get more people in the town, living in the town, enjoying their community and spending money and their leisure time here. So yes, we are going to be aiming at a different, perhaps younger resident, and we're very mindful that that's the case. So in doing that, we'll be very careful how we craft the town's personality. And that is a further stage of the whole Transform Leatherhead initiative and process.
Ali, do you want to talk about the USP?
Yeah, so with the work that we've been doing with John and his team, looking at the Swan Centre and repositioning it so that it's not the comparison-focused retail. It's very much a local destination, and it is exactly what you say. It's finding that local USP, which we see tying in with this modern market town. So it's about creating within the Swan Centre, tying into the high street, wider spaces where you can accommodate a bigger market, about nurturing the cottage industries and growing them so that they can grow to market stalls, creating smaller retail spaces that can be more flexible, so you could have an artist alongside an independent shop opposite Boots near Sainsbury's, a yoga studio. You've got this really exciting mix of sort of grown up industries, and that's sort of how we see the retail offer developing.
The other element of the master plan envisaged, if we can pull it off, is a rooftop garden or vineyard, which would be building on and celebrating the quality of the wine offer that's developing in and around Dorking, Leatherhead and in Surrey. So, John, do you want to touch on some of the conversations that you've had, perhaps?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, it does need something that is locally unique in order to draw people here, as opposed to going to another town. And that's a bit like that, to say, that local destination piece. But in respect of what might be something unique and a bit of a driver for people, then we have been exploring this opportunity for a rooftop vineyard, and that would probably be on the kind of roof of the car park. And it would be as much a restaurant and a social destination as it would be a working and operational vineyard. But it would be, as you say, a celebration of that industry, which is becoming synonymous with this part of Surrey.
And you also mentioned markets. So with the help of Jeremy Webb and the Chamber of Commerce, who currently look after our existing market, we met with two very different market operators, one who specialised in street foods and one who specialises in some of the London markets, including borough markets. And they both have very different ideas of what might work. So we're basically working with them to put together pitch packs for Leatherhead to see whether or not we have a catchment and a population that would support a new kind of market offer. I have to say that although people are saying markets are the answer, actually markets are struggling in the same way as all retailers. A lot of them are of a certain age. There are not new traders coming through in the same way as they used to do. And it's getting to the point where actually it could even be that you have to pay a market to come and set up. That's how difficult it is. So we are at early discussion stages with the operators. We don't want to lose the market we've currently got, because that serves some of our population really, really well. And on a good day, when there's good weather, it's really well attended and it adds something slightly different to our town centre. But we need to find something on top of that that helps support our bricks and mortar retailers too.
Hi, just wanted to ask you about the high street funding that you're applying for. How much are you relying on getting some of that funding, and how will you, if you don't want to be negative, but if you don't, how will you fund all of this stuff that you're talking about?
It's a really good question. So there's various avenues of funding, and the ones that come from central government tend to pop up quite regularly, although they have a slightly different funding objective, slightly different criteria, but we will continue to monitor and evaluate every single potential option that comes forward if we're not successful. Coastal Capital, which is our local enterprise partnership, have designated Leatherhead as its urban prosperous centre as part of its strategic economic plan for its area. What does that mean? We don't actually know the details that well yet. What it does mean is that when they start negotiating with central government the local industrial strategy for this area, it means that it might anchor additional funding, additional investment from central government via the LEP. The other main avenues of funding is fundamentally going to be through development. So developer contributions, either through strategic SIL, neighbourhood SIL for the smaller projects, and Section 106 contributions, and/or they take the risk on the development and accrue the profits at the same time. Different funding models, and we'll keep track of all the opportunities.
Regarding the ongoing works in the Swan Centre, I think there was... Sorry. Regarding the ongoing works in the Swan Centre, I think there was reference earlier to significant reconfiguration of the staircases. Well, there's only one staircase. What's happening about sustained access during the works, and is there any more detailed information available about this reconfiguration?
Yes. Well, as you quite rightly say, there's the one main staircase, and the plan is, I'm sure all of you will be able to picture it. It comes, it's got the half landing and then it comes straight down, and then the pedestrian flow is almost parallel to where the lifts come out. And the plan is to turn the stair around, and then in that very wide space, the idea is to put a small retail unit there. we have delayed bringing those works forward until the 2 passenger lifts are completed and are functioning, for the very reason you quite rightly say, because we've got to maintain access up to the car park and maintain a serviceable shopping centre. So those works won't start until early July, and they will finish in mid-September with regards to the kiosk and the stair.
Thank you. There's one other area, and that's the western end of the High Street. There seems to be work in progress on the ramps and the artistic ironwork there.
Yes, that's...
Can you give more information what's happening there?
Yeah, certainly. That's what's famously referred to as the waterless water feature, which is rather a strange term. But yes, as you probably know, works have commenced. It's being done by Surrey County Council, and it's going to be finished by the 11th of April. March. Sorry, yeah. 11th of March. Yeah. Sorry. But works are well underway, as you probably have seen. It's going to be rendered, so it's got some rather nice slate there at the moment, as you all will recall. But the problem's been that it's kept blowing off the surface, so it's looked a mismatch and has been looking rather unsightly for a while. So the slates are being removed, and it's going to be rendered and painted, so it's a uniform approach.
It's just a meanwhile treatment pending the outcome of the High Street study and the options for the High Street. So there was a need to basically tidy up, and it was also a safety concern in terms of those edges. But once we have the recommended options for the High Street, then we will look at a longer term solution for the whole of the High Street. So this is just kind of an interim piece of work.
Can everybody hear me? Good. John Howarth, Chamber of Commerce. 3 things now. It was going to be 2. Just on the point of the works at the bottom of the waterless water feature, it was originally going to be done during the Christmas shopping period, and we at the Chamber suggested that might not be such a good idea, and it should be deferred till time when there'll be perhaps fewer people around in the town, and it wouldn't be quite so inconvenient. So there's an element of apology there from the Chamber of Commerce. In the broadest sense, in terms of the Swan Centre and Transform, I mean, the Chamber, we're very supportive of this initiative and the opportunities it will bring. But it's support that's tempered by the awareness that there are risks and there are threats. Colin from the theatre has mentioned one. We've had comments about offices in the town. So we're aware that those risks and threats are there, but at the same time are of the view that as a community we've got the wit, the will and the wisdom to be able to maximise the opportunities and to minimise the adverse effects of some of the risks and some of the threats. The third thing I want to bring about is to come back to the High Street. I recently had the cause to drive up to the northwest of England, and instead of going through on the motorway network, I drove through some of the country towns, through Oxford and Warwickshire and Cheshire, and around into the mill towns of Lancashire. And driving back, I realised that the High Street, as it now stands, with the empty units, and it's not a very tidy, it's unloved at the moment. It wouldn't look out of place in one of the economically deprived Lancashire mill towns, which is where I was going. And that really emphasises the work that needs to be done now in terms of bringing the High Street into the sort of state that it needs to start the transform process. And coming back to Emma's point about the Future High Streets Fund, the more support you can give in terms of getting the High Street moving forward and trying to get this money in, the better it will be. So there's a plea from the Chamber of Commerce. Please do as much as you can to start revitalising the High Street now and do whatever you can there. So, and I hope you will support the initiative that they're taking in terms of revitalising and getting the High Street back to the sort of state it needs to be in for a town of Leatherhead's size.
Thank you, John. We really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We've had a couple more on Facebook. We've actually had quite a few, so I'm just going to try and bring one in here. So this one came in first. People living in the town centre in flats and small houses say they struggle to park their cars and obtain permits. What can be done to help them park?
I don't have an easy answer to that question. I think in an ideal world, there would be less dependence on the car as the dominant mode of transport. We would have better public transport, better sustainable options available to people. We're not there yet, and that's the work that needs to be done. We need to come up with a credible alternative to the car. But that doesn't rest in the hands of Transform Leatherhead, I'm afraid. That's down to all of us and how we choose to behave, travel, live and work. But it's a great question.
But the other thing that's worth mentioning is as part of the proposals for the vision for the Swan Centre and increasing the uses, there's proposal to add a deck on the car park, which increases the amount of parking in the Swan Centre from 280 to 400, which will accommodate the mix of uses proposed.
Hello, I work for the NHS. I was just wondering, you've got quite a lot of accommodation that's going to go in. Is any of this going to be available for key workers? Because our areas around here and my colleagues, there is no such thing for somebody who's on 30k a year as affordable housing in this area. If you think Fairfield School, Leatherhead Hospitals, is any of this going to be for key workers? Because also there'll be very good residents, because if they misbehave and get into trouble, they will lose their jobs.
So the Clare House and James House application we brought forward had its full complement of what's designated by planning policy as affordable housing, the capital A and capital H. Now I think everybody acknowledges that that doesn't necessarily mean it's affordable in the true sense of the word. The new local plan will have an updated policy relating to affordable housing, but what that's going to say and whether it will specifically refer to key worker housing, I don't know, but I can ask the question. We may not have an answer until later on this year in June when the proposed local plan goes out for consultation together with all those supporting documents, but we recognise the need, and that's partly why there's this central government push for increased density of residential building, particularly in sustainable locations.
Hilary Porter, sorry again, endorsing what this lady's just said about affordable housing. Mm-hmm. Have you looked at statistics of the ages of the residents of the area, that we lose people when they're 30s because they cannot afford to live here? You say you want to bring young people in. They cannot afford to live here. Where I am, there are maisonettes. The majority of them are now being purchased by people as a financial investment. And this is what is happening to so many of the properties in Leatherhead. People are buying them in order to rent, and they're not available. There's a young man who's moved from Cornwall who's working in one of the shops. He is in a one-bedroom living room in a house that's been converted into 7 bedsits with no social accommodation in the house. He's just living in one room. Mm-hmm. There's no control over landlords and how they can exploit young people as a source of investment. The second matter is you want to revitalise the high street. Are you looking at why the shops don't survive? I know it's not Mole Valley, it's Surrey County Council decision over the fact that you will not allow people to come into the high street between 4 o'clock and 6 o'clock and get out of their cars. Again, as a disabled person, there are people who are disabled and elderly who cannot shop in Leatherhead. They go elsewhere to shop because they can't be dropped off by their supporting neighbours or relatives who would bring them in to shop. And the shops have lost the customers between 4 and 6 o'clock because you cannot park and get out of your car in the high street. So some of the businesses have folded because they've lost customers between 4 and 6 o'clock. There is an enormous petition, both on behalf of the retailers and the residents. Please do something to enable the shops to survive between 4 and 6 o'clock.
So, you raised some really interesting points, some quite complex ones that aren't easy to answer quickly. Housing is complicated. I think we all recognise that, and I'm not a housing expert. In terms of housing needs and having the right mix of units in our district to support every different housing requirements, part of that will come through allowing additional housing. It's the simple fact of the matter. And we need to have that quantum of development to bring forward significant amounts of affordable housing. We struggle right now to deliver 50 units on average a year. We can't keep up with the demand, and we have a housing register of over 500 people on the housing register who then are forced into private rented sector accommodation. The council does have new powers under some recent legislation to enforce housing standards against private sector landlords. And again, I can ask my housing colleagues to put together an answer on our website explaining what those powers are. Just bear with me, please, Mrs. Porter. In terms of the high street, I think that tonight we acknowledge the petition. There is work underway in terms of how we can best address the needs of the high street and support the retailers, but it's not just parking on the high street, it's a more complex mix than that. Mrs. Porter, I'm really sorry, but we've got other people in the audience who also want to ask questions.
I realise that, but you say you want to put affordable housing into St James and the two blocks.
Correct.
A block that has more than 4 or 5 floors has to have a lift.
Yes.
That increases enormously the maintenance charges.
Yes.
They will not be affordable. They will not be affordable accommodation.
So I think I acknowledged that the statutory definition of affordable housing, which is what we are abiding by, isn't in the normal sense of the term affordable housing. But we don't determine the housing market. And the only answer really is what the government is seeking to do is trying to increase delivery of homes. Whether they'll be in the areas where people want to live is a different question. But it's a complex situation. Thank you. I think we've got time possibly for 1 or 2 more questions.
Thank you very much. Can you hear that? Yes. We're talking about the flats, Claire and James. Mm-hmm. I was interested that Andrew Ward said we want to look after all our lovely housing. I was also interested that generally 4 floors was considered high enough. You say we have decided to have 6. You must be wrong. We is out here, not over there. We have decided, apparently, we do not want 6. Can we just please remember that you work for us?
So
right.
We are...
And I say that very, very seriously.
And noted. So we are officers of the council, we administer taxpayers' money, and we absolutely take that responsibility very seriously. We are fully accountable and held accountable for the decisions that we as officers make. Having said all of that, we took advice on what would be an economically viable form of redevelopment for that site. The answer was housing. And if you want housing which incorporates affordable housing and community use on the ground floor, then there needs to be a certain quantum of housing to make any developer bring that scheme forward. So we have submitted an outline application for up to 6 stories. It's in the public domain. It may or may not get approved. I don't know. It's not in my hands. It's in the hands of actually your elected members, and they'll make the decision on the night based on the officer's recommendation and their own considerations that they as local members are responsible for making, and it's in their hands. And I would just say to you that not only as officers are we accountable to you, but your members are accountable to you, but they are seeking to balance competing considerations, including the need for local housing and affordable housing in the statutory sense of the term. But you've had your opportunity to provide your feedback on the application. It's all on the public portal, and it'll be decided as it's decided on the night. So it's in your hands.
I only wish it was.
Just to say that I find quite exciting the river development, because when my children were young, we used to drive all the way to Ripley most weekends to sit in a pub outside, or sometimes inside, and even in the winter, and then walk along the river, climb trees. I'm quite excited about the river development, because when my children were little, we used to go to Ripley most weekends and sit outside in the pub or inside in the winter, go along the riverbank, climb trees. I know you were saying about a unique selling point, but the thought of nice restaurants where you could sit outside and developing that walk, because a lot of people that live with children in Surrey love nature and being outside. I don't know if that would contribute to your unique selling point, but I've got a lot of friends that would really love that, sitting by the riverside, eating and meeting up. So I just thought that sounds good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think we've got time for one more question.
You spoke about redesigning the car park. How much thought has been put into the future of electric cars and supplying electrical outlets? Because you're looking for unique selling points. Sustainability and health and a more ecological looking future might be part of that.
Yes, that's a very valid point. And in fact, one of the last bits of improvement works to the Swan Centre car park is going to be putting 2 electrical charging facility points up on the top floor of the car park. And as an authority, Mole Valley are look at an initiative at the moment to roll that out across the rest of our car parks throughout the district. It's something that we're very keen to progress.
Because in 10 years' time, we're probably going to be actually having electric cars, and you may even be able to provide some public electric cars.
Yeah, it's the way forward. Agreed.
It's exciting. I'm really sorry, but we've got one more thing we want to do this evening, and we're kind of running out of time. For all of you who wanted to ask a question and didn't have an opportunity to do so, please do take a moment just to write them down on the cards in your packs, and we will go through every single card and provide you with a written response by way of an update on our Transform Leatherhead website. But we do really welcome the questions that you raise. It helps keep us on our toes and accountable, as that gentleman said, and you never know what kind of ideas may come out of it. At this point of the evening, I said we had a kind of special finish, and I think it is a really special finish. So marking the end of an era for a unique asset to Leatherhead, Barton's Books, and the unique Peter Snell. And we were really struck when we heard the news on Facebook that Barton's book shop was closing down. The outpouring of positive messages and the acknowledgement of how much it meant to the residents and visitors and the leather community, and how sad they were that Peter was embarking on a new chapter in his life. So we just thought we want to showcase this moment and acknowledge the huge contribution he's made to Leatherhead over the years, and just highlight a number of the beautiful comments that have been posted on Facebook about him. So I understand, and please forgive me, Peter, if I've got this wrong. We've done our research, but it may not be 100% fact-checked. We believe he opened Barton's Bookshop in August 2008. And before that, you were the manager of Corbett's Bookshop in the Swan Centre. Good. Your wife saw an opportunity and acquired the Corbett's stock when it closed down, and that led to the launch of what we now know as Barton's Bookshop. And over the years, Barton's has won so many awards, too many to mention, but many Muddy Stilettos. And recently, Barton's Bookshop won Retail and Hospitality Establishment of the Year, and Peter was personally commended in the Business Person category. He's a real part of the community. Not only is he a businessman, an entrepreneur, he's also an active member of the Leatherhead Chamber of Commerce, and he's an active and memorable participant in many community events not just Halloween, but also wearing a familiar red costume. But with the shop sleeves coming to an end and family commitments, I understand Peter took stock and decided it was time to bring Barton's bookshop to an end and to move into the new phase of his life, to travel, look after his family, and commence a restoration project on his Austin 7. So some of the comments that have been posted on Facebook we've just showcased here, and I've got a couple more that I wanted to read out that really touched me. And if I start to look a bit emotional, it's because I am. But one comment was, "We will miss your sound advice and the wonderful way I always left your shop with more books than I came in to buy." That's a sign of a good retailer. "You will be sorely missed in Leatherhead by our whole family." Lots of others like that. Another one here which just highlights the contribution that books makes to literacy. "Thanks to you, to Peter, my children have been introduced to new authors and exciting new adventures. They will miss you." And at this point, I'd be really grateful if Peter would honour me with his presence on stage. We've got a little gift to sort of celebrate the contribution he's made through Barton's bookshops and his own unique self to this district. And I'm really hoping that we can prevail upon Peter just to say a few words. But before Peter speaks, I'd just like to present him with this little memento, just to showcase Barton's bookshops and Peter Snell.
Thank you very much.
Shall I hold it for you?
Thank you. Yeah. That's lovely, thank you. I was so afraid it was going to be beard scissors. I feel doubly guilty now. 1, for letting down all my customers and friends. 2, for taking up time when you all had questions to ask. There are 2 things I'd like to read, one of which is up on the screen. Yeah, it's still there. But there's a letter from a customer. And these try and encapsulate something of what I've tried to do, what bookselling means to me. This isn't addressed to me, it's addressed to everyone who's worked in Barton's bookshop. "I just wanted to write a note to thank you for the work you've done in the bookshop. It has been a lovely place to hide from the chaos of everyday life in that unique silence that books give. The bookshop has been an island of peace in the town, and I will miss it. Thank you for every book you've placed into my hands and into my mind. Best wishes for the future, and thanks again for all the worlds I have found here." I won't embarrass the person who wrote it by saying their name, but the other one is that quote up there. It's from a young lady who now lives up in Suffolk. And she'll be getting married later this year. And she just sent me an email saying, "Peter, I'm so heartbroken I couldn't come down from Suffolk to say goodbye in time. Peter, I would just like to say the biggest thank you to you for everything you've ever done for me in the huge chunk of my life that you have known me. Thank you for always providing a safe space in the back of your shop since I was 7 years old. I love nothing more than curling up with a book you suggested for me whilst my mum popped off to do the food shopping. She trusted you and valued you so much, and I wish she was still with us to tell you so. Mum died a year or so ago. Thank you for always making me feel valued, safe, and above all special. And thank you for always keeping the magic of story alive for me. And thank you for always making me so tremendously happy and for making me fall in love with books. I promise to never stop reading. I will miss you and your hugs dearly. I have promised Tom and Carrie that I will give them whatever help I can and suggestions and ideas in their new bookshop venture, Book Potato. So I won't be involved in any official way, but if they need any help or advice or contacts, I'm always available. Now, you're probably wondering why this meeting was called today. And it was to just remind you about the Barton's Book pop-up shop that we'll be operating Thursdays
Fridays and Saturdays in the Swan Centre. First one was today, and my goodness me, it was cold. So if you want to preserve an old bookseller, come and buy books at really tremendous savings. Bring me coffee, not to drink, just to keep my hands warm. That's about it, really, except can I be cheeky?
Go on.
Can I suggest that if you're going to put a vineyard on top of the Swan Centre, you could look at a green roof on top of the residential block in the Bull House area, with a sky bridge from the railway station to that roof to ease access to the town centre.
It's a fabulous idea.
Just a thought.
We'll add it to our list.
You could call it the Bartons Memorial.
No, that would be something. Thank you, Peter. Thank you. As I said, that's the sign of an expert retailer, really unique in his class. Didn't lose the opportunity for a quick plug. So you know where he's going to be. And I think it's great that he's offered his expertise to Book Potato. And maybe, Peter's me being cheeky now, maybe if there are other aspiring retailers out there who would value a bit of your how to do it, should I say Qua, they might be able to approach you as well, maybe?
Don't claim I'm a businessman and entrepreneur.
Of course you are.
My wife would shoot you down.
Anyway, that kind of brings things to a close this evening. Just again, thank you to everybody for coming. Thank you for giving us your questions. Please do sign up to our e-update if you want to keep track of what's going on a more regular basis. We have our social media channels, and once again, one final plug from me is please do give us your support, either through the cards, online, or by letter to transformleatherhead@morley.gov.uk. Thanks again. Have a safe journey home. Good night. Well done.